straight, but fell in love with my lesbian best friend after she saved my life during cancer. Jess and I have been best friends since elementary school. She's been through everything: my abusive relationships, family trauma. When her religious parents disowned her for being gay, my mom and I took her in. She used to joke about wishing I was gay because we're soulmates. I'd laugh and agree. I was straight. Or so I thought. 2 years ago, we got an apartment together. Last year, I got diagnosed with breast cancer. When I told my family and asked my mom for financial help, they turned their backs completely. Still don't know why. Maybe the money. Maybe they couldn't handle it. The only person left was Jess. She didn't hesitate. Took out loans, worked 2 jobs to cover rent and treatment, drove me to every appointment, held my hand through chemo, made sure I ate when I couldn't keep anything down. She'd crawl into my bed when the pain was bad, hold me until I fell asleep. That's when it started. Her touch made me feel safe in ways I'd never felt. Started noticing her smile, how her laugh made my chest tight, how I'd watch her sleep after double shifts and feel this overwhelming need to protect her like she protected me. I spent months in therapy thinking I was confused, mixing gratitude with attraction. But no, I'd fallen in love with my best friend. 3 months ago, declared cancer-free. We cried in each other's arms for hours. My mother never called, not during treatment, not after. But Jess was there. Now I'm healthy and desperately in love with her. And I swear she knows. She started wearing crop tops around the apartment. Does her hair the way I once drunkenly said was pretty. Hugs me from behind while cooking. Holds my hand playfully. Falls asleep with her head on my lap. Last night she said, "Seeing you thriving makes me smile so much." Then pulled me into this endless hug. This morning she walked out of the shower with just towels, dripping wet, made me touch her new belly button piercing. Feel how smooth the metal is, guiding my fingers across her stomach. She has to know what she's doing, right? But what if I'm wrong? What if this is just how she is? What if I tell her and ruin the one relationship that saved my life? Last week, wine drunk, talking about her ex, she said, "I think I've been looking for you in every woman I date. But you're straight, so I just date versions of you instead." I almost told her then. Almost said I haven't been straight since she held me through chemo. That I dream about her. Wake up hoping she'll kiss me. But I froze. Changed the subject. She looked disappointed. My therapist says tell her. We survived too much to not be honest. Worst thing isn't rejection, it's never knowing. But how do you tell your best friend who saved your life, spent her savings on your bills, held your hair while you threw up, that you're desperately in love with her? I wrote her a letter. Left it on her pillow before she got home from work. Jess, you saved my life in more ways than one. When your parents kicked you out, you showed me real strength. Then you loved me through cancer when my family couldn't. Somewhere between holding my hand through chemo and washing my hair when I was too weak, I fell in love with you. Not friend love, the kind where I dream about waking up next to you forever. Where your smile makes me forget I had cancer. Where I finally understand why relationships with men never felt right. Terrified this changes everything. But you taught me life's too short to not tell people you love them. So I love you. As the woman I want to spend my life with. If you don't feel the same, we'll pretend this never happened. But if you do, I'm ready. She came home, read it crying, walked toward me. She said yes. Been waiting 3 years. We were both sobbing. She kissed me. Everything perfect. Then her phone rang. Unknown number. She answered on speaker. "Jessica?" "This is Dr. Patterson from the oncology ward." We both froze. I'd never heard that name. "There's been a development with your test results." "What test results?" I asked. Jess went pale. "I'll call you back. This can't wait. The masses we found." She hung up. "What masses?" "Jess, what's going on?" She started crying, different tears than before. "When you were going through treatment, I found a lump. Got tested. They found multiple masses in my lungs." "What?" "Stage 3, maybe 4. They're doing more tests." "When did you find out?" 6 months ago." 6 months? Why didn't you tell me?" "You were fighting to survive. Then you were recovering. Then you were finally happy." "I couldn't." "Your double shifts. You said they were for my bills." "Treatment's expensive. I didn't want you to know." "The weight loss. You said it was stress." "Chemo. I've been going while you're at work." "You're dying?" "I wanted you to be happy. At least for a while. Before I had to tell you." The room spun. "How long?" She couldn't look at me. "Jess, how long?" "They said maybe a year, 6 months ago." I can't breathe and I can't think, and all I can do is stare at Jess while she cries with her phone still in her hand. 6 months ago she found out she was dying, And she kept working those double shifts and holding me while I recovered and never said a word. The woman who saved my life has been dying this whole time and I didn't even notice. Her shoulders shake and she won't look at me, and I realize she's been carrying this alone for half a year, while I walked around our apartment happy and healthy and completely blind. All those times I caught her staring at me with this sad smile. All those moments she held me a little too long. All those nights she crawled into my bed when I thought she was just being affectionate. She was memorizing me, saying goodbye in pieces while I planned a future we'll never have. My hands start shaking and I grip the edge of the couch because if I don't hold on to something, I'm going to fall apart right here. She worked 2 jobs while getting chemo, and I complained about being tired from 1 shift at the bookstore. She held my hair while I threw up from cancer treatment, and then went to her own appointments and never told me. The anger hits me so hard I can barely see straight. I finally find words and they come out angry because anger is easier than the terror flooding through me. "When did you find the lump?" I ask, and my voice sounds like someone else's voice, sharp and cold. "What did the doctor say exactly? How many treatments have you had? Why would you hide this from me?" The questions pour out faster than she can answer them, and I watch her flinch with each one, but I can't stop. Jess sits on the couch looking small and defeated in a way I've never seen her look before. She's always been the strong one, the one who held everything together, and now she's folding in on herself like she's trying to disappear. Her hands twist in her lap and she opens her mouth twice before any sound comes out. "I found it while helping you shower," she says quietly. "You were having a bad day after chemo and you couldn't stand up by yourself, and I felt this lump under my ribs while I was holding you. I thought it was nothing at first, but it kept growing and I couldn't ignore it anymore." She tells me the whole story through tears, and I sit there feeling like I'm underwater, like everything is happening in slow motion. Finding the lump while helping me shower after a bad chemo day, getting tested while I was at appointments, receiving the diagnosis the same week I finished my last treatment. She kept working because her treatment was expensive and she'd already taken out loans for mine. Every double shift was actually a chemo appointment followed by a work shift she could barely get through. I remember those weeks when she came home so tired she could barely talk, and I thought she was just exhausted from working so much. I made her dinner and rubbed her feet and told her she needed to take better care of herself. The whole time she was dying and letting me take care of her like she was just tired from a long day. She went through 6 months of chemo alone while I recovered and celebrated being cancer-free, and fell in love with her like we had all the time in the world. I asked her once why she looked so thin, and she said work stress, and I believed her because I wanted to believe her. The weight loss I blamed on stress was from chemo and cancer eating away at her. The exhaustion I thought was from taking care of me was her body fighting a losing battle. All those times she held me while I cried about being sick. She was sicker and never said anything. I feel like I'm going to throw up. My brain keeps trying to rewrite the last 6 months with this new information, and every memory turns into something horrible. Her falling asleep on the couch at 7 p.m. wasn't cute, it was cancer. Her buying smaller clothes wasn't a new style, it was her body wasting away. Her constant cough that she blamed on allergies was her lungs full of masses. I watched her die in slow motion and thought she was just stressed about money. The guilt hits me so hard I double over and Jess reaches for me, but I pull back because I can't let her comfort me right now, not when she's the one who's dying. "How could you not tell me?" I say, and I'm crying now too. "How could you go through this alone when I was right here?" I ask her how long the doctors gave her and she won't meet my eyes when she says maybe a year total, and it's already been 6 months. The math hits me and I can't process it at first because it's too big and too final. 6 months left? Maybe less. We have maybe 6 months left together if we're lucky. We just started this relationship minutes ago and there's already an end date stamped on it. I finally got her and I'm already losing her. The room spins and I have to put my head between my knees because I actually might pass out. Jess is talking, but I can't hear her over the ringing in my ears. 6 months means summer at most. 6 months means we'll never have a first anniversary. 6 months means I need to fit a lifetime of loving her into half a year. I lift my head and look at her and she's watching me with this broken expression like she's waiting for me to leave. Like she thinks I'm going to walk away now that I know. The thought makes me so angry I could scream because doesn't she know me at all? Doesn't she understand that I would never leave her? We stay up all night talking, crying, sometimes just holding each other in silence. Jess keeps saying I'm sorry for ruining our first night together as a couple, and I keep telling her to shut up because there's nothing to ruin. We're together, and that's what matters. But inside I'm screaming because this isn't fair and I just got her and I'm already losing her. She falls asleep around 2 a.m. with her head on my chest, and I lie there staring at the ceiling counting her breaths. I never knew you could hear someone dying in the sound of their breathing, but now I can't unhear it. The slight wheeze, the way she has to work harder for each breath, the pauses that last too long. I hold her tighter and she shifts in her sleep, and I wonder if she's been doing this for me, listening to me breathe and counting the nights we have left. My shirt is wet from her tears and mine, and I think about how we should be celebrating right now, how we should be happy and giddy and planning our future. Instead, we're grieving a relationship that just started. At 3 a.m., I realize I need to know everything about her medical situation, not just the basics. I shake Jess awake gently, and she looks confused for a second before remembering, and her face falls. I need to know everything, I tell her. Your doctors, your treatment plan, your prognosis, what stage 3 means in real terms. Jess is reluctant to dump all the medical details on me, and she says I've been through enough medical stuff already. I don't need to hear all this. I cut her off and tell her I'm not asking. I'm telling her I need to know because I can't help if I don't understand what we're facing. She sits up and pulls her knees to her chest and starts talking in this flat voice like she's reading from a medical chart. I get up and find a notebook and start writing everything down because my brain can't hold all of this right now, and I need to remember it later. She explains that stage 3 lung cancer means it's spread to lymph nodes, possibly stage 4 if it's in both lungs, which they're still trying to figure out. The multiple masses mean it's growing fast and in multiple places. Chemo hasn't been working as well as they hoped, which is why Dr. Patterson called about more tests. Her next appointment is in 3 days, and she was planning to go alone like always. I stop writing and look at her and say, "You're never going to another appointment alone again." She tries to argue that I've been through enough medical trauma and I don't need to relive it with her cancer. I shut that down right away. She sat through every single one of my cancer appointments for 2 years, held my hand through every scan and every bad news conversation and every treatment. I'm sure as hell sitting through hers. We're in this together now, actually together, and that means I get to take care of her too. She starts crying again and says she doesn't want to be a burden, and I want to shake her because how could she ever think she's a burden after everything she's done for me? The next morning feels wrong in every way. We're girlfriends now, but instead of the happy beginning I imagined, we're making coffee and talking about oncology appointments. Jess looks exhausted, and I realize she probably hasn't been sleeping well for months, carrying this secret and watching me be happy while she was dying. The guilt of not noticing makes my chest hurt. I watch her pour coffee with shaking hands, and I see all the signs I missed. How thin her wrists are, how her shirt hangs loose on her frame, the dark circles under her eyes that I thought were just from working too much. She catches me staring and tries to smile, but it doesn't reach her eyes. We sit at our kitchen table in silence drinking coffee, and I think about how many mornings we've done this, how many times we've sat here talking about nothing important. Now every morning feels important because we're counting down and I don't even know what number we started at. I grab my phone and find Katie's number with shaking hands. She answers on the second ring and I can barely get the words out before I start crying. I tell her everything that happened last night, how Jess said yes and then told me she's dying, how I don't know what to do or how to handle any of this. Katie says she can fit me in at 2 o'clock today, which means I have 4 hours to hold myself together. I hang up and look at Jess sleeping on the couch, her face pressed into the cushions, and I want to crawl back into bed and never come out. Instead, I make more coffee and sit at the kitchen table staring at my hands until it's time to leave. Katie's office feels different today, like I'm seeing it for the first time even though I've been coming here for over a year. I sit in the same chair I always sit in, and Katie looks at me with that expression therapists get when they know you're about to fall apart. I start talking, and I can't stop, words pouring out about how I finally got everything I wanted, and it's being ripped away at the same time. Katie lets me cry for a while before she starts asking questions. She wants to know what I'm feeling beyond the obvious grief, and I realize I'm angry at Jess for hiding this from me, for lying about the double shifts, for making me think we had time when we don't. Katie nods and says that's normal, that anger is part of grief, and I can love Jess and be furious with her at the same time. She helps me separate the two things, the love and the grief, and explains that both are real and both matter. The love doesn't go away because Jess is dying, and the grief doesn't make the love less true. Katie says the worst thing I could do is let the grief steal the time we have left, that I need to be present with Jess for however long she has instead of spending it all mourning what's coming. It helps somehow, hearing her say it out loud, and when I leave her office, I feel like I can breathe again. When I get home, Jess is awake and sitting on the couch surrounded by papers. Bills are spread across the coffee table in messy piles, statements with red letters and past due notices mixed in with medical invoices. I see numbers that make my stomach drop, amounts with so many zeros I have to count them twice. Jess looks up when I walk in, and her eyes are red from crying. She starts gathering the papers like she wants to hide them, but it's too late. I've already seen. I sit down next to her and pull one of the statements toward me. It's from a hospital I've never heard of, addressed to Jess, for something called targeted radiation therapy. The amount owed is over $12,000. I pick up another paper and it's a credit card statement with a balance of $18,000 and a minimum payment she definitely can't afford. There's a loan document from some company I don't recognize, another credit card maxed out, hospital bills from 3 different facilities. I start sorting them into piles while Jess sits there looking like she wants to disappear. She took out 3 different loans, I realize as I go through everything. She maxed out 2 credit cards. All of this was for medical expenses, Hers and mine mixed together, and the interest rates are killing her. Some of these bills are in collections already. I look at Jess and she's crying again. Different tears than last night. Tears that look like shame. She starts apologizing, and I have to physically put my hand over her mouth to make her stop. She's sorry for leaving me with this mess. Sorry for being sick. Sorry for being expensive to keep alive. I tell her to shut up because she's not allowed to apologize for having cancer. Not to me. Not after everything she did for my cancer. We sit there for a minute with my hand still covering her mouth until she nods that she understands. I grab my laptop and open a spreadsheet because that's what Jess did for me when I was drowning in my own medical debt. We go through every single bill together, writing down what we owe and to whom. Hospital bills, doctor bills, pharmacy bills, lab work, imaging, treatment costs, medication costs. My remaining cancer debt mixed with her lung cancer debt mixed with the loan she took out to cover both. The total comes to $82,000 and some change. Jess makes a sound like she's been punched when she sees the number written out. She starts crying harder and saying she's sorry again. Sorry for leaving me with this disaster. Sorry for dying and sticking me with her debt. I grab her face with both hands and make her look at me. I tell her she spent 2 years taking care of me when I was sick. She took out loans for my treatment. She worked herself to death literally to keep me alive. She doesn't get to apologize for being sick now. She doesn't get to feel bad about needing help after she gave me everything. We're in this together, I tell her, and that means the debt is ours, not just hers. She leans her forehead against mine, and we stay like that until she stops shaking. We need help with this, I tell Jess once we've both calmed down. Professional help from someone who knows about debt consolidation and medical bills and all the things we don't understand. Jess mentions Isaac, her old coworker from the coffee shop job she had before I got sick. He does financial planning now, helps people sort out their money problems. Jess looks embarrassed about asking him for help, but I remind her that she spent her whole life helping everyone else. Her parents when they were struggling before they kicked her out. Me when I was dying. Random friends who needed a place to crash or money for rent. It's time to let people help her for once. I text Isaac from Jess's phone explaining the situation, and he responds within 10 minutes saying he can meet with us this week. Jess cries again, but this time it's relief. Like she's been carrying this weight alone for so long, she forgot what it feels like to share it. That night, we try to pretend everything is normal. We cook dinner together like we've done 1,000 times. Pasta with the sauce Jess makes that I've never been able to replicate. We put on a movie, some comedy we've both seen before, and curl up on the couch like any other couple on any other night. Jess puts her head on my shoulder and I play with her hair, and for maybe 20 minutes I forget that she's dying. Then halfway through the movie, Jess starts coughing. It's not a normal cough, not the kind you get from swallowing wrong or breathing dust. It's deep and wet and it doesn't stop. She sits up trying to catch her breath, but the coughing keeps going, her whole body shaking with it. I rub her back and get her water, but nothing helps. 5 minutes pass and she's still coughing, gasping between fits, her face turning red. When it finally stops, she's exhausted, slumped against me and breathing like she just ran a marathon. I hold her and try to keep my face calm even though inside I'm screaming. This is what it's going to be like, I realize. This is what the next 6 months look like. I kiss the top of her head and tell her I love her and try not to let her see how scared I am. The next day I go back to work for the first time since everything happened. Everyone knows I told Jess how I felt because I'd mentioned I was planning to, and they all want to know how it went. My coworkers crowd around my desk asking questions, smiling like they're expecting a happy ending. I smile back and say it went well, which is true technically. Jess said yes. We're together. That part is perfect. But I can't make myself tell them about the cancer. Can't find the words to explain that I got the girl and found out she's dying in the same breath. It feels like Jess's story to share when she's ready, not mine to announce at work. So I let them think everything is perfect, and I answer emails and attend meetings and pretend my world isn't ending. At lunch, I hide in the bathroom and cry for 10 minutes before washing my face and going back to my desk. Nobody notices. Jess has her appointment tomorrow, and I'm more nervous than I was for any of my own cancer appointments. After work, I go home and open my laptop and start searching. Lung cancer staging, treatment options, survival rates, clinical trials, anything I can find. The more I read, the more scared I get. Stage 3 lung cancer has a 5-year survival rate of 10 to 15%. Jess is already 6 months into her diagnosis with poor treatment response. The cancer has spread to her lymph nodes, possibly both lungs. Chemotherapy isn't working well. I read about palliative care and hospice and end-of-life planning until my eyes hurt. At 2 in the morning, I'm still reading, looking at statistics and case studies and medical journals I barely understand. Everything I find is bad. Nothing I read gives me hope. I close the laptop and go to bed, but I can't sleep. Just lie there staring at the ceiling, thinking about percentages and survival rates, and the fact that Jess is probably going to die before summer. At the oncology appointment, I meet Jade for the first time. She's younger than I expected, maybe late 30s, with kind eyes and a firm handshake. She seems surprised that Jess brought someone with her, asks if I'm family. Jess says I'm her girlfriend, and Jade's face softens like she understands what that means in this context. We sit in her office and Jade pulls up Jess's scans on the computer screen. She's kind, but she doesn't sugarcoat anything. The recent scans show the cancer has gotten worse despite the chemotherapy. There are more masses now, bigger ones, and they're growing faster than expected. Jade says we need to talk about whether to continue aggressive treatment or shift to something called palliative care. Jess looks at me with panic in her eyes because this is clearly worse news than she was expecting. I reach over and take her hand, squeeze it tight, and nod at Jade to keep talking. Jade explains the options in clear, simple terms. They can continue chemotherapy, maybe try a different drug combination, and it might buy a few more months. But the chemo will make Jess sicker and weaker, more nauseous and tired, and there's no guarantee it will actually help. The other option is palliative care, which focuses on managing pain and symptoms instead of trying to cure the cancer. It would give Jess better quality of life for whatever time she has left, keep her comfortable and functional instead of sick from treatment. Jade says it's not giving up, it's choosing how to spend the time remaining. She says some patients choose to keep fighting until the very end, and some patients choose to live as fully as possible while they can. Both choices are valid. Jess starts crying and I hold her hand so tight my knuckles turn white. Jade gives us tissues and time and doesn't rush us. She says we don't have to decide today. We can think about it and talk about it and come back when we're ready. But she wants us to really consider what matters most to Jess now, length of time or quality of time. She hands us folders full of information about both options and tells us to call her when we've decided. We don't make any decisions at the appointment. How could we? This is too big, too permanent, too real. On the drive home, Jess is silent, staring out the window at nothing. I don't try to fill the silence because what is there to say? We're almost back to our apartment when Jess suddenly speaks. She says she doesn't want to spend her last months feeling like death from chemo when she could be actually living with me. Her voice is quiet but steady, like she's been thinking about this the whole drive. She says she's been fighting for 6 months already, and she's so tired of being sick, of spending her days nauseous and weak and feeling like her body is at war with itself. She wants whatever time she has left to be real time, present time, time where she can actually be with me instead of just surviving treatment. I don't say anything because this is her choice to make, her body and her death and her decision about how to face it. But I reach over and take her hand and drive us home. That night we sit on the couch in silence for a long time, both of us staring at nothing. I keep reaching for words and finding nothing that feels right. How do you have this conversation? How do you ask someone you love what they want from the time they have left? Jess finally breaks the quiet and says we need to talk about what happens next. Her voice is steady, but her hands shake when she reaches for mine. She tells me she's been thinking about this for months, ever since the doctors first said the chemo wasn't working as well as they hoped. She's been fighting for 6 months already and she's so tired. Not just physically tired, but tired of feeling sick all the time, tired of spending days nauseous and weak, tired of her body being at war with itself. She says maybe it's time to accept what's coming and make the most of now instead of spending her last months feeling like death just to buy a few extra weeks. I want to beg her to keep fighting. The words are right there in my throat, pushing to get out. Keep trying, don't give up, there has to be something else we can do. But I swallow them down because this isn't about what I want. This is her body and her death and her choice about how to face it. I tell her I'll support whatever she decides, and I mean it, even though part of me is screaming. She cries and says she's sorry, like she's apologizing for dying, and I pull her close and tell her to stop. There's nothing to be sorry for. The next morning, Jess says she's decided. She wants to stop the chemo and switch to something called palliative care. I don't really know what that means, so she explains it's about managing symptoms and staying comfortable instead of trying to cure the cancer. It means accepting she's dying and focusing on quality of life for whatever time is left. I support her decision out loud, even though inside I want to scream at her to keep trying everything possible. We call Jade together and Jess tells her she wants to stop treatment and transition to palliative care. Jade's voice is kind on the phone and she says this is a valid choice that many patients make. She'll start the paperwork and set up a meeting with the palliative care team. After we hang up, Jess looks relieved and terrified at the same time. I hold her and try not to think about what this decision really means. I realize I need to tell my job what's happening. I can't keep taking random days off without explanation, and I'm going to need real flexibility as Jess gets sicker. I call my boss and ask for a meeting, then sit in her office the next day trying to explain that my girlfriend has terminal cancer and I need accommodations. My boss is sympathetic and doesn't ask too many questions. She offers me reduced hours and the option to work from home when I need to. I'm grateful but also angry that I have to worry about employment and money while the person I love is dying. The whole conversation feels wrong, like I'm negotiating vacation time instead of discussing end-of-life care. I thank her and go back to my desk and stare at my computer screen without seeing anything. Jess's phone rings that evening and she answers, then immediately starts crying. It's Remy, her cousin, the only family member who didn't abandon her when she came out. Jess finally told her about the cancer and about us being together. I can hear Remy's voice through the phone, high and upset, asking why Jess didn't tell her sooner. Jess explains through tears that she didn't want to burden anyone, and she thought she could handle it alone. Remy says that's the stupidest thing she's ever heard, and she's coming to visit this weekend. She lives 2 hours away, but she promises to visit regularly and be there for whatever we need. After they hang up, Jess looks lighter somehow, like sharing the weight made it easier to carry. She says it feels good to not be lying to everyone anymore. Isaac comes over 3 days later to help us figure out the debt situation. He's Jess's former coworker and apparently does financial planning now. We spread all the bills and loan statements across the kitchen table, and he starts making lists and calculations. The numbers are worse than I thought. Between my cancer debt and Jess's treatment costs, we owe over $80,000 to various hospitals, credit cards, and loan companies. Isaac is honest in a way that makes me want to throw up. He explains that when Jess dies, some of her debt will transfer to me depending on what's in whose name and what state laws say about medical debt. He can help us consolidate and negotiate payment plans to minimize the damage, but there's no magic solution. We spend 2 hours going through options and signing paperwork. It's practical and necessary, and I hate every single minute of discussing financial planning around Jess's death. When Isaac leaves, Jess apologizes again for the mess she's leaving me with. I tell her to shut up about the money. I don't care about the debt. I just want her. Our first appointment with Viviana happens the following week. She's the palliative care nurse who will coordinate everything going forward. Viviana is older with gray hair and warm eyes, and she talks about death like it's just another part of life, which somehow makes it less scary. She sits with us in a small office and asks Jess what matters most to her in the time remaining. Jess thinks for a long time before answering. She says she wants to be present and not foggy from medication if possible. She wants to actually be with me, not just existing in the same space while drugged up. Viviana nods and makes notes and explains they'll focus on managing symptoms while keeping Jess as alert and comfortable as possible. She asks about our support system and our living situation, and what kind of help we might need. I answer most of the questions because Jess is tired. When we leave, Viviana hugs us both and says we can call her anytime. I believe her. The bad days start coming more often after that. Jess spends whole days in bed because the pain and exhaustion are too much. I learn to manage her medications, checking the schedule Viviana gave us and making sure she takes the right pills at the right times. I help her to the bathroom when she's too weak to walk alone. I bring her food she can actually keep down, mostly soup and crackers and ginger tea. It's strange being on this side of caregiving after she did all this for me during my cancer treatment. Sometimes I catch myself feeling angry that I don't get to just be the girlfriend, that I have to be the caregiver too. Then I feel guilty for being angry. This is what love looks like when someone is dying. It's not romantic or easy. It's helping someone shower and managing their pain medication and pretending you're not falling apart inside. Alexandra shows up at our apartment on a Tuesday afternoon without warning. I open the door, and there she is, Jess's ex from 2 years ago, standing in the hallway looking nervous. Jess is asleep in the bedroom, and I'm immediately furious at the intrusion. Alexandra says she heard about the cancer through mutual friends and she needs to see Jess. She needs closure and to apologize for how things ended. I want to slam the door in her face, but something stops me. Maybe it's the way she's twisting her hands together or the genuine regret in her eyes. I tell her Jess is asleep right now, but she can come back tomorrow afternoon if Jess agrees to see her. Alexandra thanks me and leaves, and I stand in the doorway wondering if I just made a huge mistake. When Jess wakes up, I tell her Alexandra came by. She's surprised and goes quiet for a long time. They had a really messy breakup where Alexandra cheated and Jess hasn't spoken to her since. I can see her working through it in her head, trying to decide if she wants to reopen that door. Finally, she says, maybe it would be good to clear the air before she dies. She doesn't want to carry that old hurt anymore, and maybe talking to Alexandra would help. She agrees to see her for coffee at our apartment tomorrow. I ask if she wants me there, and she says yes, she needs me there. I text Alexandra that tomorrow at 2 works, and then hold Jess while she processes whatever she's feeling about seeing her ex again. Alexandra arrives exactly at 2 the next day with expensive coffee from the shop Jess used to love. The 3 of us sit in our living room, and it's awkward as hell at first. Nobody knows quite what to say. Then Alexandra starts talking and apologizing. She says she was young and stupid and scared of commitment, and she handled everything badly. She cheated because she was afraid of how much she loved Jess, and she's regretted it every day since. She tells Jess she's sorry for not being the partner Jess deserved, and she's glad Jess found someone who clearly loves her the right way. She looks at me when she says that last part. Jess cries and thanks her for coming and says she forgives her. They talk for another hour about good memories and mutual friends and how life turned out. When Alexandra leaves, she hugs us both. After she's gone, Jess says it feels good to have that closure, to know she's not carrying that old hurt into whatever comes next. 2 days after Alexandra leaves, I call Katie's office and ask if she can fit me in. The receptionist hears something in my voice and schedules me for that afternoon. I sit in Katie's waiting room staring at a poster about mindfulness and breathing exercises, but my chest feels too tight for any of that to help. When she opens her door and gestures me inside, I walk in and immediately start crying before I even sit down. Katie hands me the tissue box and waits. She's good at waiting. I wipe my face and try to find words for what's been building inside me since Jess told me about stopping treatment. The anger sits in my stomach like something heavy and sharp, and I'm scared to let it out because what kind of person gets angry at their dying girlfriend? I tell Katie I'm furious at Jess for hiding the cancer for 6 months, for lying about the double shifts, for deciding to stop treatment without really fighting, for giving up when I fought so hard to survive my own cancer. The words pour out ugly and mean, and I hate myself for saying them, but they're true. I'm so angry I could scream, and I'm also so in love with her, I can barely breathe, and I don't know how to hold both things at the same time. Katie leans forward and says something that breaks me open. She says anger is just grief in different clothes, that I'm allowed to be furious and loving at the same time. That being angry doesn't mean I love Jess less. It means I'm human, and this situation is impossible and unfair. She reminds me that Jess's choices about her body and her death are valid even when I disagree with them. That respecting someone's autonomy means letting them choose their own path, even when that path leads away from you. I cry harder because she's right and I hate it. I want Jess to keep fighting. I want her to try every treatment and never give up. But that's what I want, not what Jess wants. Katie asks me what Jess actually said about her decision, and I remember. Jess said she's tired. She said she wants to live whatever time she has left instead of being sick from chemo. She wants to be present with me, not foggy and nauseous and losing more pieces of herself. Katie helps me see that Jess isn't giving up. She's choosing quality over quantity. She's choosing to spend her last months being herself instead of being a treatment patient. It's brave in a way I wasn't expecting. I fought my cancer with everything I had, but Jess is fighting hers differently. She's fighting to keep her dignity and her moments with me. That's still fighting. By the end of the session, the anger hasn't disappeared, but it feels different. Less like betrayal and more like grief wearing a mask. Katie reminds me I can be angry and loving at the same time. I can disagree with Jess's choice and still support her. I can grieve what I'm losing while cherishing what I still have. It doesn't have to be one or the other. 3 nights later, Jess wakes me up at midnight gasping for air. Her hand clutches my arm and her whole body is shaking. I turn on the light and she's pale, her lips slightly blue, fighting to breathe. Panic floods through me so fast I almost can't move. This is it, I think. This is how it starts. This is how I lose her. I grab her phone and call the hospice nurse line. The nurse asks questions about Jess's breathing, her color, her pain level. Jess can barely speak between gasps. The nurse tells me to take her to the emergency room right now. Don't wait for an ambulance, just go. I throw clothes on both of us, grab Jess's medication list that Viviana made us keep updated, and half carry Jess to the car. The drive to the hospital takes 12 minutes but feels like hours. Jess leans against the window trying to breathe, making these small wounded sounds that tear me apart. I keep one hand on her leg and drive faster than I should, running a red light at an empty intersection because getting pulled over matters less than getting her help. Please don't die in my car, I think. Please don't die before we get there. The ER is mostly empty at 3 in the morning. I help Jess through the automatic doors, and the triage nurse takes one look at her and calls for immediate help. They put her in a wheelchair and rush her back before I even finish giving her information. A nurse guides me to a waiting area and promises someone will update me soon. I sit in a plastic chair under fluorescent lights and shake. 20 minutes later, a doctor comes out and brings me back to Jess's room. She's sitting up in bed with an oxygen mask over her face, looking exhausted but breathing easier. The doctor explains they've given her medication to help with the breathing difficulty and adjusted her oxygen levels. Her lung capacity is decreasing as the cancer progresses, and episodes like this will become more frequent. The doctor is kind but honest. This is part of the disease progression. Jess's lungs are filling with fluid and the tumors are restricting airflow. They can manage the symptoms with medication and oxygen, but these breathing crises will keep happening. Eventually, one of them will be the final one. The doctor doesn't say it that bluntly, but that's what the medical language means. Jess keeps the oxygen mask on while the doctor talks. Her eyes meet mine over the plastic edge, and I see fear there. Real fear. We've been talking about her dying in abstract terms, planning for it, but this made it concrete. This showed us what the end might actually look like. Gasping for air in the middle of the night, drowning slowly in her own body. They keep Jess for observation until morning and adjust her pain medication dosage. A different doctor comes in around 6 and prescribes oxygen for home use. She'll need it more and more as things progress. The doctor gives us information about what to watch for and when to call hospice versus when to come back to the ER. There's a careful line between managing symptoms at home and knowing when intervention is needed. We get home around 8 in the morning. I help Jess into bed and she falls asleep immediately, exhausted from the night. I sit next to her and watch her breathe with the oxygen tube in her nose. The machine makes a quiet hissing sound. I count her breaths. In and out. Still here. Still breathing. For now. That afternoon, when Jess wakes up, we have the conversation we've been avoiding. We talk about advanced directives, about what she wants when she can't communicate anymore, about how she wants to die. The hospice packet Viviana gave us sits on the coffee table with all its forms and legal paperwork about end-of-life decisions. Jess says she doesn't want to be on machines. No ventilator, no feeding tube, no resuscitation if her heart stops. When it's time, she wants to go peacefully. She wants comfort care only. Medication for pain and breathing, but nothing that prolongs the dying process. She's thought about this already. She knows exactly what she wants. I get a pen, and we fill out the forms together. There's a section about who makes medical decisions if she can't. She writes my name. There's a section about what interventions she does and doesn't want. She checks all the boxes for comfort measures only. There's a place for her signature and date. Her hand shakes slightly as she signs. I try not to break down while writing out instructions for my girlfriend's death. Try not to think about being the person who has to tell doctors not to save her. Try not to imagine the moment when I have to let her go instead of begging them to do more. But my hands shake too, and tears drop onto the paper, smudging the ink slightly on the corner of the page. Jess reaches over and squeezes my hand. She thanks me for doing this with her, for being strong enough to have this conversation, for respecting her choices even when they hurt. I want to scream that I'm not strong, I'm terrified, but I just squeeze her hand back and finish filling out the forms. We put the completed paperwork in a folder that we'll keep by the bed. The hospice nurse needs a copy. Our primary care doctor needs a copy. The hospital needs a copy. All these people need written proof that when Jess stops breathing, they should let her go. The folder sits on the nightstand like a small bomb, ticking down. The following weekend, Remy drives up to stay with us. She arrives Friday evening with bags of groceries and a photo album she found at her parents' house. Jess lights up when she sees her cousin. It's the first genuine smile I've seen on her face since the ER visit. Remy hugs Jess carefully, aware of how fragile she's become. They settle on the couch together while I make dinner, and I hear them laughing from the kitchen. Real laughter. The sound fills the apartment in a way it hasn't in weeks. I stand at the stove stirring pasta and crying because I'd forgotten what Jess's laugh sounds like when she's actually happy. After dinner, Remy opens the photo album. It's from before Jess's parents disowned her. Family gatherings, holidays, birthday parties. Jess at 12 with braces. Jess at 15 at Remy's bat mitzvah. Their grandmother's 80th birthday party. Remy points to photos and shares memories. The time Jess accidentally set the kitchen on fire trying to make breakfast. The summer they convinced their parents to let them go to sleepaway camp together. The Thanksgiving when Jess came out and everything changed. Jess cries looking at the photos. She misses her parents. Even after everything, even after they chose their religion over their daughter, she misses them. Remy says she tried calling them last month to tell them about the cancer. They wouldn't take her call. Their own daughter is dying and they won't even talk to her. But Jess says she's made peace with it. Her parents made their choice. She can't control that. She can only control how she responds, and she's chosen to build a family that actually loves her. Me, Remy, my mom now, the people who show up. That's her real family. Remy stays the whole weekend. On Sunday before she leaves, she tells Jess she's proud of her, for living authentically even when it cost her everything, for finding love, for facing death with grace. Jess hugs her cousin and makes her promise to stay close to me after she's gone, to help me through it. Remy promises through tears. After Remy leaves, I sit with the weight of everything. The ER visit, the advance directives, the photos of Jess's family who abandoned her. I think about my own parents. My mom who turned her back when I had cancer. My dad who never even called. I don't want to have regrets. I don't want to wonder if I should have tried one more time. Monday morning, I call my mom. My hands shake while the phone rings. She answers on the third ring. I tell her I need to talk to her about something important. There's a long pause before she agrees to listen. I tell her Jess is dying. Stage 3 lung cancer. Maybe 6 months left. We're together now. Not just friends anymore. She's my girlfriend. The woman I love. And she's dying. And I need my mom to know. The silence on the other end of the line stretches so long I think she hung up. Then she speaks. She says she needs time to process this. That it's a lot of information. That she'll call me back. Then she hangs up. I sit holding the phone and feel exactly as I expected to feel. Hurt, but not surprised. My mom needed time to process when I had cancer too. She needed time when I asked for help. Time is her way of saying she doesn't know how to handle things. But at least I tried. At least I gave her the chance. Jess asks how it went when I tell her about the call. I say it went exactly how I thought it would. Jess holds my hand and says she's proud of me for trying. That reaching out took courage. That whatever my mom decides, I did the right thing. That night, Jess and I start making a list. Not a bucket list. We call it our memory list. Small things she wants to do while she still can. Places that matter to us. Moments we want to create. Nothing dramatic or expensive. Just us honoring our past together. Visit the coffee shop where we first met in college. Go to the park where we used to study under that big oak tree. Watch the sunrise from our apartment roof. Make her grandmother's cookie recipe together. Listen to the playlist we made during my cancer treatment. Simple things. Memory things. Jess writes them down in her shaky handwriting. The list is short, maybe 10 items. But each one matters. Each one is a piece of our story. We're not trying to check off big experiences. We're trying to honor what we've already built together. We're trying to say goodbye to the places that made us who we are. The next afternoon, we go to the coffee shop. It's a perfect autumn day. Cool but sunny. The leaves are turning orange and red. Jess moves slowly, the oxygen tank in a small backpack I carry for her. We order overpriced lattes and sit at a table by the window. The same table where we used to sit in college. Jess looks around the coffee shop and smiles. She tells me about the day she realized she was in love with me. 3 years ago. I was helping her move furniture into her old apartment. We were sweating and laughing, and I made some stupid joke about her terrible decorating taste. And suddenly she knew. She loved me. Not just friend love, the kind of love that changes everything. She says she's loved me for so long that being with me now feels like coming home, like she's been waiting her whole life for me to catch up. For me to see what she saw 3 years ago. That we're meant to be together. That we always were. I reach across the table and take her hand. I tell her about my own realization. During her cancer treatment. How her touch made me feel safe in ways I'd never experienced with anyone else. How I started noticing everything about her. The way she smiled. How her laugh made my chest tight. How I'd watch her sleep after double shifts and feel this need to protect her. I spent months in therapy trying to convince myself it was just gratitude. That I was confused. That I couldn't actually be gay. Katie kept telling me to trust my feelings. That love isn't confusion. That I knew the difference between grateful and in love. And she was right. We laugh about how we were both pining for each other while living together. Both too scared to risk the friendship. Both thinking the other person didn't feel the same way. All that wasted time. Except Jess says it wasn't wasted. We needed that time. We needed to be ready. And now we are. Even if now is all we get. We sit in the coffee shop until the sun starts setting. People watching. Talking about nothing important. Just being together. When we leave, Jess takes one last look around. She says she's glad we came back. Glad we have this memory of being here together. Not as friends, as us. The next week, Jess's breathing gets worse. Even with the oxygen, she struggles. Simple things like walking to the bathroom leave her gasping. She sleeps sitting up now because lying flat makes it harder to breathe. I watch her fight for air and feel helpless. Jade comes to the apartment for a home visit. She listens to Jess's lungs and checks her oxygen levels. The cancer is progressing faster than expected. Jade prescribes oxygen for full-time use, not just when needed. Jess will need to wear the nasal tube constantly now. Jess hates it. She says the oxygen tube makes her look sick, makes her feel old, makes the cancer visible in a way it wasn't before. She asks if she really has to wear it all the time. Jade is gentle but firm. Without the oxygen, Jess will struggle to breathe. With it, she can still do things. Still have quality of life. The choice is hers, but Jade recommends wearing it. That night, Jess sits on the edge of the bed with the oxygen tube in her nose and cries. She looks at herself in the mirror and says she doesn't recognize herself anymore. The weight loss, the pale skin, the oxygen tube, this isn't who she is. I sit next to her and turn her face toward mine. I tell her she's beautiful, with or without the oxygen, sick or healthy. I fell in love with her soul, not her lung capacity. The oxygen doesn't change who she is. It just helps her breathe. And breathing means more time with me. More moments together. That's all that matters. Jess rolls her eyes but smiles. She says I'm biased. I say I absolutely am. She leans her head on my shoulder and we sit like that for a while. Her breathing easier with the oxygen. My heart breaking watching her accept this new reality. 2 weeks after I called my mom, my phone rings. Unknown number. I almost don't answer. But something makes me pick up. It's my mom. She says she's been thinking about our conversation. About what I told her. She wants to meet for coffee. She wants to talk. I'm nervous, but I agree. We meet at a cafe near my apartment the next day. My mom looks older than I remember. More tired. She orders tea and we sit across from each other in awkward silence for a moment. Then she starts talking. She apologizes for abandoning me during my cancer treatment. She says she was overwhelmed. Scared. She didn't know how to handle seeing me so sick. She handled it badly. She knows that. She's sorry. I want to be angry. Part of me is angry. But mostly I'm just tired. I tell her about Jess. How Jess saved my life. How Jess paid for my treatment. How we're together now. how Jess is dying. My mom cries listening. Real tears. She says she wants to meet Jess. She wants to thank her for being there when she couldn't be. I'm protective and unsure, but I tell her okay, she can meet Jess. But if she hurts her or judges her or makes this about religion or sexuality, she's gone. My mom promises she won't. She just wants to meet the woman who saved her daughter's life. The woman I love. I spend the next few days thinking about my mom meeting Jess, and every time I picture it, I feel protective and angry. My mom abandoned me when I was sick, and now she wants to show up and meet the woman who saved my life. Part of me wants to tell her no, that she doesn't deserve to meet Jess after everything. But when I tell Jess about my hesitation, she takes my hand and says, "Family matters, even when it's hard." She says she wants to meet my mom because I need to rebuild that relationship before Jess is gone. The way she says it so calmly, like her dying is just a fact we're working around, makes my chest hurt. I agree to let my mom visit, but I make it clear that if she says anything about Jess being gay or judges our relationship, she's gone. My mom promises she'll be respectful and just wants to thank Jess for being there when she couldn't be. The day my mom comes over, I clean the apartment 3 times, and Jess laughs at me for stress cleaning. She's sitting on the couch with her oxygen tube in, looking tired but happy, and she tells me it's going to be fine. When my mom knocks, I answer the door and she's holding flowers, which feels awkward and forced, but at least she's trying. She walks in and sees Jess on the couch, and her face does this thing where she's clearly shocked by how sick Jess looks, but she covers it quickly. My mom hands Jess the flowers and says, "Thank you for taking care of me when she couldn't." And Jess smiles and says, "I'm easy to take care of." The conversation is stiff at first, my mom asking polite questions about Jess's treatment, and Jess answering graciously. I sit between them feeling like I'm waiting for something to go wrong, but it doesn't. My mom doesn't say anything about us being together or about Jess being gay. She just treats Jess like a person she's grateful to, and that's enough for now. After my mom leaves, Jess says that went better than expected, and she's glad I'm giving my mom another chance. I tell her I'm only doing it because she asked me to, and Jess laughs and says that's fair. Over the next few weeks, my mom starts visiting every week, usually on Saturdays. She brings groceries and helps me clean and does laundry while Jess rests. It's weird having her back in my life after she abandoned me, and I don't think I've forgiven her yet, but Jess is right that it helps to have the support. My mom never asks intrusive questions about our relationship or Jess's prognosis. She just shows up and helps with practical things. Jess says she's glad I'm rebuilding this bridge before she's gone, that she doesn't want me to be alone after. The way she talks about her death like it's a logistics problem we're solving makes me want to scream, but I know she's just trying to take care of me even now. My dad still hasn't reached out and probably never will, but having my mom back feels like something. Thanksgiving comes and we decide to have it at our apartment with my mom, Remy, and Isaac. It's small and nothing like the big family holidays I grew up with, but Jess says this is better because it's people who actually chose to be here. I cook a turkey that's too big for 5 people, and Remy brings sides and my mom brings pie. Isaac shows up with wine and makes Jess laugh, telling stories about their old coworker who thought he was a genius but couldn't work the copy machine. Jess is exhausted by the middle of dinner and has to go lie down, but she says she's grateful for this family we've built together. I sit next to her on the bed while everyone else finishes eating, and I tell her I'm grateful she's here to see this, even though I know it's probably her last Thanksgiving. She squeezes my hand and says she's had more good days than most people get in a lifetime, and I want to argue, but I just hold her instead. December comes with cold weather and Jess's health gets noticeably worse. She needs the oxygen constantly now, not just when she's tired and she sleeps most of the day. I work from home as much as possible so I can be here when she wakes up. We start watching all her favorite movies together, the ones she's seen 100 times, and we have to pause every 20 minutes so she can rest. She jokes that we're having the world's longest movie marathon, and I laugh even though nothing about this is funny. Some days she's too tired to watch anything and just wants me to lie next to her and talk about random things. I tell her stories about work, and she tells me memories from when we were kids, back when everything was simple and we didn't know what cancer was. The first snow comes in mid-December, and Jess asks if we can sit on the balcony and watch it fall. I bundle her up in blankets and help her outside, and we sit together while snowflakes land on the railing. She's shivering even with all the blankets, but she's smiling, and she says this is exactly the kind of moment she wanted to have with me. I take a photo of her with snowflakes in her hair, and she looks so happy despite everything. She says she's glad she got to see snow one more time, and I have to look away because I can't handle the way she keeps saying things are the last time. We decide to celebrate Christmas early because Jess isn't sure she'll make it to the actual day. I've been working on a photo album for weeks, putting together pictures from elementary school through college, through her taking care of me through now. I give it to her on December 20th, and she cries looking through every page. She keeps stopping to tell me stories about different photos, like the one from 6th grade where we're both wearing matching Halloween costumes, or the one from college where we stayed up all night studying and looked half dead in the morning. She gets to the recent photos, the ones from after my cancer treatment where we're both smiling and healthy looking, and she says she's had the most beautiful life because I was in it. I'm crying too hard to respond, so I just hold her. Jess gives me a box wrapped in newspaper because she's too weak to go buy wrapping paper. Inside are letters, dozens of them, each one labeled with a date or event, one for every month of the first year after she's gone. plus letters for my birthday and other milestones. She says she won't be here, but she wants me to know she's still with me, that she'll always be with me. I can barely see through my tears as I promise to read them when she's gone, and she makes me promise I won't read them before because she doesn't want to ruin the surprise. I agree, even though the idea of reading letters from her after she's dead makes me feel sick. A few days after Christmas, Viviana comes over and asks to talk to both of us about hospice care. She explains what the final weeks might look like, how Jess's breathing will get worse and the pain will be harder to manage. She says Jess can stay at home with hospice support if that's what she wants, and Jess immediately says yes because she wants to die in our apartment surrounded by our life together. Viviana is gentle but honest about what to expect, how there will be more equipment and more nurse visits, how we need to prepare for Jess to become less responsive. I sit there taking notes like this is a work meeting because if I stop and think about what we're actually discussing, I'll fall apart. We start making arrangements for a hospital bed and oxygen equipment and increased nursing visits, and it all feels too real and too fast. Jess has a good day in late December where she wakes up with more energy than usual. She asks me to help her shower and wash her hair, and I'm so gentle with her body that's gotten so thin and fragile. I wash her hair slowly, careful not to pull, and she leans back against me with her eyes closed. She thanks me for taking care of her the way she took care of me, and she says we've come full circle. I want to tell her this isn't the same, that she saved my life and I'm just watching her die. But I don't because this moment is too precious to ruin with my anger at the universe. New Year's Eve comes and Jess is too weak to stay up until midnight. We decide to celebrate at 9 instead, making our own midnight. I pour us each a tiny glass of champagne even though she can barely drink it, and we count down from 10 together. At our fake midnight, we kiss, and she whispers that loving me was the best thing she ever did. I tell her that being loved by her saved my life in every way that matters, and it's true even though I hate that this is how our story ends. January hits hard. Jess stays in bed most days now, propped up on pillows because lying flat makes breathing impossible. The hospice nurses come twice a day to adjust her medication, checking her oxygen levels and asking questions about pain on a scale of 1 to 10. She always says 5 even when I can see it's worse. I lie next to her for hours, holding her hand, telling her stories about us. Remember when we tried to bake a cake for your 18th birthday and set off the fire alarm? Remember that road trip where we got lost for 3 hours because neither of us would admit we were reading the map wrong? She smiles with her eyes closed, squeezing my fingers when she's too tired to talk. The apartment smells like medicine now, antiseptic and chemical, covering up the vanilla candles I keep burning. Her breathing sounds wrong, rattling and uneven, and I count the seconds between each breath without meaning to. Remy shows up one morning with 2 suitcases and announces she's staying for however long we need her. She sets up in our tiny second bedroom, the one we use for storage, pushing boxes aside to make space for an air mattress. She and I create a schedule, taking turns sitting with Jess so neither of us burns out completely. Remy tells Jess stories I've never heard, about family gatherings before Jess came out, about how Jess taught her it was okay to be gay when Remy was 14 and scared. Jess listens with her eyes half closed, her breathing labored even with the oxygen tube. She whispers that she's proud of Remy, that watching her cousin live openly and happily makes everything worth it. Remy cries quietly, holding Jess's other hand while I hold the first, and we sit like that for an hour. My mom comes by almost every afternoon now, bringing containers of soup and casseroles I can't bring myself to eat. She sits in the chair by Jess's bed, not saying much, just being present while Jess sleeps. One day she tells me she's sorry she wasn't there when I was sick, that she was scared and overwhelmed and handled it all wrong. She says she can't take back abandoning me during chemo, but she's here now and she's not leaving again. It doesn't erase the year of silence or the fear I felt when I thought I was dying alone, but it helps. Having her here means something, even if the timing feels cruel. Jess has good moments between the medication fog, brief windows where her eyes focus and she sounds like herself. During one of these moments, she grabs my hand with surprising strength and makes me promise something. She needs me to keep living after she's gone. Finish school, build a career, maybe fall in love again someday. I promise through tears that won't stop, even though the thought of loving anyone else feels impossible and wrong. She says she means it, that she didn't save my life just so I could stop living when she dies. I tell her I'll try to. She says, trying is enough. Katie starts coming to the apartment for our therapy sessions because I can't leave Jess for more than 20 minutes without panicking. She sits on the couch while I curl up in the chair and we talk about preparing for death while someone you love is still breathing. Katie says grief is love with nowhere to go, that when Jess dies, all the love I have for her will still exist, but won't have a person to land on anymore. She tells me the depth of my grief will match the depth of my love, and that's okay, because it means what we had was real and mattered. I ask her how I'm supposed to survive losing Jess, and she says the same way Jess survived losing her parents, the same way I survived cancer, one breath at a time until breathing doesn't hurt quite as much. On a quiet Tuesday morning in mid-January, Jess's breathing changes. It becomes shallow and irregular, with long pauses that make my heart stop until the next breath comes. Viviana arrives and checks Jess's vitals, then pulls me aside gently. It won't be much longer, she says. Hours, maybe a day. I climb into bed next to Jess, careful not to jostle her and wrap my arms around her fragile body. I tell her it's okay to go, that I'll be okay, that I love her more than anything in the world. Remy sits at the foot of the bed and my mom stands by the door, giving us space but staying close enough to matter. Jess dies that afternoon with her head on my chest and my arms around her. One moment she's breathing, struggling but breathing, and the next moment she's not. The absence is so sudden and complete that my brain can't process it. She's here and then she's not, and the difference is just silence where there used to be the sound of her fighting for air. I hold her body and cry and tell her I love her over and over, like if I say it enough times she'll come back. Viviana eventually touches my shoulder gently and says it's time, that the hospice team needs to do their job now. I don't want to let go. Letting go means accepting she's really gone. The days after Jess dies blur together into a mess of phone calls and paperwork and people coming and going. Remy handles most of the logistics because I can barely function. She calls the funeral home, organizes death certificates, contacts people who need to know. I move through the apartment like a ghost, seeing Jess everywhere. Her coffee mug still sits in the sink from 3 days ago. Her jacket hangs on the chair by the door. Her smell lingers on the pillows and in her closet and on the blanket she always used. I sleep in her spot on the bed, because it's the closest I can get to her now. We have a small memorial service at the coffee shop where we spent so many hours together. The one with the terrible art on the walls and the barista who always remembered our orders. My mom is there, and Remy, and Isaac who helped us with the debt. Katie comes, and Viviana, and even Alexandra shows up to pay respects. People share stories about Jess's kindness and strength, about the way she made everyone feel seen and valued. I realize listening to them that Jess touched so many lives just by being herself, by being brave enough to live openly as a gay woman when her family were rejected her for it. I read a letter I wrote about what her love meant to me, about how she saved my life twice and I barely get through it without breaking down completely. After the service, I go home to our apartment and it's so empty I can't breathe. The silence is crushing, suffocating, wrong. I walk to our bedroom and open the box of letters Jess left me, finding the one marked 1 month after in her handwriting. My hands shake as I open it. She tells me it's okay to be devastated, that grief means our love was real, that she's not really gone as long as I carry her with me. She reminds me I promised to keep living. She says she'll be with me in every sunset we watch together, every song that made us laugh, every moment of joy I let myself feel. I read it 3 times, crying so hard I can barely see the words, and then I fold it carefully and put it back in the box with the others. The first month is fog. I wake up and forget for 3 seconds that she's gone, then remember and the grief hits fresh every single morning. My mom calls every day around noon to check if I've eaten, if I've showered, if I need anything. I lie most of the time because the truth is, I need Jess, and she can't give me that. Remy drives down every Friday after work and stays through Sunday, sleeping on the couch and making sure I'm still breathing. She doesn't push me to talk, just sits with me while I stare at nothing. Katie sees me twice a week now instead of once because I'm barely holding it together. She keeps reminding me that grief this big means the love was real, that feeling destroyed is normal when you lose your person. I'm angry at Jess for dying, angry at myself for not noticing she was sick sooner, angry at the universe for giving us 6 months together and then ripping her away. Katie says all of it is okay to feel. I sleep on Jess's side of the bed because her pillow still smells like her shampoo and it's the only thing that helps me fall asleep. I wear her hoodies around the apartment even though they're too big. I keep finding her things everywhere and each discovery breaks me again. Her coffee mug in the cabinet, her bookmark in a novel she'll never finish, her handwriting on the grocery list stuck to the fridge. The apartment feels too big and too empty and too full of her ghost all at once. February comes and I know I need to go back to work, or I'll disappear completely into the grief. I call my boss and ask if I can start part-time, maybe 3 days a week to begin. She says yes immediately and tells me to take whatever time I need to adjust. My first day back, everyone is careful around me. They know Jess died, but not many know we were together, so they offer condolences for my best friend, and I don't correct them because explaining feels impossible. My coworkers don't ask questions or push me to participate in conversations. They just let me exist in the space and do my work. It helps having structure again, having a reason to get dressed and leave the apartment. I'm not okay, but I'm functioning, and Katie says that counts as progress. I still sleep on Jess's side of the bed every night. The smell is starting to fade from her pillow, and that terrifies me because it feels like losing her again. I spray her perfume on the pillowcase sometimes just to keep her close a little longer. March arrives, and I remember Jess said to open the 3-month letter. I've been avoiding the box of letters she left because opening them feels too final, like accepting she's really gone. But I promised her I'd read them when she wanted me to. So on a rainy Saturday morning, I sit on the couch and open the envelope marked 3 months after. Her handwriting makes my chest hurt. She tells me about the day she found out I had cancer, how she sat in her car after I called and cried for an hour before pulling herself together. She writes about going to the bank to ask about loans, about the woman who helped her who was kind even though Jess was shaking and crying while filling out paperwork. She says the decision to take out those loans wasn't even a question because I was her person, and she'd do anything to save me. The money didn't matter. Nothing mattered except making sure I survived. Then she writes about her own diagnosis, about sitting in the oncologist's office alone and thinking about how I'd just finished treatment and was finally healthy and happy. She says she couldn't tell me because I deserved to be okay for as long as possible, that she wanted me to have months of just being healthy without the shadow of her cancer hanging over everything. She says she hopes I understand now why she hid it, that it wasn't about lying, but about protecting the happiness she fought so hard to give me. Reading her words, something shifts in my chest. The anger I've been carrying about the secrecy starts to dissolve because I finally understand. She hid her cancer for the same reason she took out those loans, the same reason she worked double shifts and held my hand through chemo. Because loving me meant protecting me however she could, even if it meant protecting me from the truth of her own death. I fold the letter carefully and put it back in the box, and for the first time since she died, I feel something other than just grief. I feel forgiveness. April brings warmer weather, and I start volunteering at the LGBTQ+ center downtown on Saturday mornings. It's something Jess talked about doing once she felt better, helping newly out queer people navigate coming out and finding community. I figure I can do it for her, carry forward the work she would have done. My first day, I meet with a 19-year-old girl whose parents just kicked her out for being gay. She's scared and lost and doesn't know where to start rebuilding her life. I help her find resources for temporary housing, connect her with support groups, give her phone numbers for therapists who specialize in LGBTQ+ issues. When she thanks me and says I gave her hope, something clicks into place. This is how I carry Jess forward. Not by keeping her alive in my grief, but by being for other people what she was for me. By helping queer kids who got rejected by their families the way Jess's parents rejected her. By showing up for people who are scared and alone and need someone to fight for them. Every Saturday I go back and help more people, and each time I do, I feel connected to Jess in a way that doesn't hurt quite as much. She's gone, but the love she gave me, the strength she taught me, that doesn't have to die with her. By late spring, I'm having more good days than bad ones. I still miss Jess constantly, but the grief isn't quite as crushing anymore. It's there, always there, but I'm learning to carry it instead of being buried by it. My mom and I have coffee every Wednesday morning now. Our relationship isn't fixed completely, but we're trying, and that matters. She tells me she's proud of how I'm handling everything, and I tell her I learned how to survive from Jess. Remy and I talk on the phone every week, sharing memories of Jess and checking in on each other. I'm back at work full-time and even went on a hike with some coworkers last weekend. It felt good to be outside, to do something normal, to laugh at someone's stupid joke without immediately feeling guilty for being happy. I'm not the same person I was before Jess died. That version of me died with her. But I'm becoming someone new. Someone who knows how to love deeply, and lose completely, and keep going anyway. Someone who understands that grief and joy can exist in the same moment. Someone who carries her person with her everywhere she goes. 6 months after Jess dies, I open the letter she wrote for this exact day. My hands shake holding the envelope because 6 months feels both impossibly long and terrifyingly short. She tells me she's proud of me for surviving the grief, for keeping my promise to live, for honoring our love by not letting it destroy me. She says she hopes I'm starting to feel like myself again, whoever that self is now. Then she gives me permission to be happy, to laugh without guilt, to maybe eventually date again if I want to. She says she doesn't want me to spend my life alone mourning her, that she wants me to build a full, beautiful life even though she's not in it. She says loving someone doesn't end when they die. It just changes form, and the best way to honor what we had is to keep living as fully as she would have wanted me to. I cry reading it, but the tears feel different now. Still sad, but also grateful. Grateful for the time we had, for the love we shared, for everything she taught me about strength and sacrifice and choosing to live even when it's hard. Jess saved my life twice. Once from cancer when she took out those loans and worked herself into exhaustion to pay for my treatment. And once from grief by leaving me these letters, by teaching me that love doesn't end with death, by showing me that the people we lose stay with us in how we choose to live after they're gone. I've decided to go back to the school in the fall to become a counselor specializing in grief and chronic illness. I want to help people navigate the impossible space between fighting to live and accepting death, between being sick and being a caregiver, between loving someone and losing them. I want to do for others what Jess did for me, what Katie did for me during the hardest year of my life. I still miss Jess every single day, and I know I always will. But I'm living the life she fought so hard to give me. I'm being brave enough to keep going, to keep loving, to keep becoming the person she always believed I could be. That's how I keep her alive now. Not by holding on to the grief, but by carrying forward the love.